With the growing threat to the nation's security system and the implementation of state policing has been discussed by all stakeholders in the country. The issue here is how to solve the security challenges in the country. Nigeria has had its fair share of security challenges since its inception as a nation. We must also understand that the issue of state policing has been discussed at all quarters from both the states, the local government and the federal government. But it remains an exclusive list in the Nigerian constitution. The conversation today is how can we improve on our security system by looking at the issue of state policing. My name is Adewale Olashokwan. This is THESTEAM. On today's program, I'm joined by Mallam Pantami. He is the General Secretary, Arewa Youth Network for Best Society. Thank you for coming for the program, Mallam.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, it's good to be here, that we have you here today to talk about this very salient issue. Shall we start by looking at the assessing the issue of security in Nigeria? We could dial back to the administration of Goodluck Jonathan. During the time he was rounding up his administration, we had Boko Haram take up some territories in the northern part of Nigeria, especially Borno State. And thereafter, we had the administration of General Muhammadu Buhari. He had his own fair share of security challenges, and the gains that was recorded, Nigeria's territory was restored. And moving on from that, the security challenges that he faced throughout his own tenure as in his administration, issue of banditry, issue of kidnapping became widely spread across all different zones in the country. And now we have a new administration of Bola Tinubu. How can you assess the issue of security so far in Nigeria?
Well, frankly speaking, the main primary objective of government establishment or establishing a government in a country is to protect the lives and properties of the citizen. But in Nigerian case, at the situation, let me say from the time of Goodluck Jonathan to this time, the case is different. It's not about seeing people on the street walking. Even if you see people walking on the street, are they having the feeling in their minds that they are secured or not? If they don't have that feeling in their mind that they are secured in their country, that means the issue of security is already a failure. And at the same time, not just in the cities, when you go to the villages, you go to the local governments, you go to communities where a group of people will come and kidnap people, or apart from the normal armed robbery, stealing that we usually have. From the time of Goodluck Jonathan to this time, we started having issues of a serious kidnapping issue. This kidnapping is taking away somebody and keep him somewhere to collect a ransom. It was there before the time of Goodluck Jonathan, but as at that time, it became rampant to the extent that more than about 286 schoolgirls were kidnapped to show that there is virtually no security in the country. Many farmers have been kidnapped in their farm, bringing the issue of high level of food insecurity. Now it's not just about insecurity of human life. And at the same time, because of the insecurity of human life, now you are having insecurity of food. You don't have food, you don't have security as a person because people are afraid of going to farm to work. If people cannot go to farm to work, that means food will not be harvested on the farms. As food are not harvested, there is going to be hunger. And somebody should not be telling us as Nigerians that you are going to import food items. Those countries you will go and import food items, they may not have fertile land like Nigeria. They may not have human resource like Nigeria. And the food items in most cases imported to the country, if care is not taken, is expired and it may not be good for human consumption. Then the issue of other aspect of insecurity, apart from kidnapping, we started having issues of people can't run their businesses. People don't have confidence in the government, that the government is securing them. So there is virtually absolute failure in terms of security in the country.
Exactly, I understand. And with these assessments that you've made, a lot of Nigerians could have their opinion, but perhaps you're very critical of the government. If we look at what was achieved during the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, we can always believe and always, it's evidently clear that Nigeria's sovereignty was restored when we got back our territory from Boko Haram insurgents that hoisted their flags in the northern part of Nigeria, exclusively in Borno State. So looking at the security issues multi-layered, and we have different intervention. And looking at what you've said, I think you've stated rightly that with the insecurity to the lives of people would always metamorphose and cause other security challenge, cause other challenges such as food insecurity and perhaps economic meltdown in the country. But that's a given. We understand that. Now, looking at the conversation of today's state policing, how exactly do you think this is possible? For instance, can we start the conversation about the legal and the constitutional challenges that face it? Well,
of course, we can start. The issue of state policing, you know, whatever you want to do as in Nigeria or anywhere in the world, it has to be legal. It has to be part of what the Constitution says you should do. As it stands, we know that issue of police in Nigeria is the exclusive right of the federal government. So if you want to establish police in Nigeria, state police in Nigeria, it has to pass through the National Assembly, and the executive has to append signature that it has to be a law, that law permits state government to establish state police. Without achieving that, you cannot even discuss. No matter how you advocate, no matter how you discuss.
But that already is being done at the National Assembly right now. There is a bill to look at the state security issue, especially for state policing. But looking at the constitutional review, one of the stakeholders at the National Assembly said perhaps it would take 2 years for us to look at the issue and legal framework to put them into place. But looking at this time frame that we have, 2 years is a very long time for us to enact this thing. The federal government and the presidency as well has asked state governors to submit reports about the issue of state policing, and we've had 16 governors submit their reports to the National Executive Council. So we're looking at different work being done from both the National Assembly and also the executive arm of government, which is the presidency. But some people still do not believe. They feel this is just for media attention. Do you think we're actually going somewhere with this? It has passed the second reading so far.
Well, you know, it's a process. As soon as the bill is in the National Assembly, it has passed the first reading, the second reading, and the executive arm of government is showing interest by asking the governors to submit their reports, and some have submitted. That means we are moving forward. Something is being achieved. Of course, you know, there is Freedom of Information Act, which makes government to come out and tell the citizens of the country whatever that is going on at every moment. So if the government or the Minister of Information did not play their own part properly, Nigerians will be doubting. And I can't blame Nigerians for doubting the government, because there are countless of promises made by the government and they have not seen the light of the day.
But some people will disagree with you that the administration right now is one that has lived to its promises. President Tinubu promised that subsidy was going to be gone. He promised that, and on the first day after his inauguration, he said subsidy was gone. Secondly, he mentioned that he's going to implement student loan for students. He has implemented that. So from one aspect to the other in different areas of governance, we've seen this president done what he said he was going to do during his campaign trail. So are you going to then look at this government and criticize them? Perhaps they're not doing enough?
Well, it's not about what the government say they want to do and they are doing it. It's about the livelihood of the citizens. Are the citizens happy with the decision of the government? Because you make a pronouncement, you start implementing a particular policy, and that policy is unfriendly to the people. People did not welcome it. We cannot, Nigerians will not be happy with the government, and they will face a serious constructive criticism, most especially from social critics, civil society organizations, and opposition parties. It's not about government saying what they want to do and they are doing it. It's about making sure that citizens are happy, socio-economic development is taking place in the country.
If you look at the issue of the happiness of the citizens, do you think that that itself is the priority right now? Because President Tinubu said, this is not to side him, but he said there are some baby steps of pain. I'm trying to reiterate how he said it particularly, essentially saying that there's some pain that you have to sustain if you want to see change come forward.
Let me be frank with you. President Tinubu did not actually talk about change like the way President Muhammadu Buhari did during his campaign. We will not believe government until we see the positive part of it. Nigerian government over time is used to planning without implementation. No matter how you plan, if the implementation is not good enough, it will be a failure. And some plan, Nigerian government will plan, budget, provide money, and then allow some people to embezzle it. So it's not about planning and saying. It's about planning, saying, implementing for the betterment of the citizens of the country. Anything government is doing, no matter how good it is, that will not better the life of the citizens will be rejected.
A lot of people would agree with you and also disagree with you. Perhaps agreeing with you that the government has a lot to do, and disagreeing with you that perhaps you're saying embezzlement and the likes of corruption, which we cannot really prove at this table. But looking at the operation itself, implementation, let's stand on it. How will this be funded? How do you think, since it's still at the exclusive list of the government, how do you think when this is being implemented, the responsibility has to fall on the state government? And we look at different states in Nigeria. We have those in Lagos states that perhaps have the highest internally generated revenue for their states, and look at some other states as well. Some states that perhaps combined in their region cannot even boast what Lagos have. So and those states, if I may conclude on this, those states will have more security issues than Lagos would have. So how do you think the issue of funding will have to be? Do you think the federal government still have to support in some ways?
Well, to be frank with you, I don't want us to be using Lagos, Port Harcourt as benchmark or yardstick of saying so state is generating revenue, so it's not. The Nigerian government is not fair to all the states. What is the major source of revenue generation in Lagos State is the seaport. And Nigeria deserves not less than 8 seaports. And it is only Lagos Seaport that is serving the whole country. So goods that will be consumed in Maiduguri that are imported through sea in Lagos will pay tax to the Lagos state government. That means the whole country is giving Lagos money. The money Lagos government is generating is the whole country's money.
I think that
is one.
That is
another point. Okay. Another point. I want to go back to what we are talking about.
Okay.
In Nigeria today, mineral resources have been discovered in almost all parts of the country. It is the fault of the federal government that is not exploring the resources in those states that makes those states to remain poor. And that is why most of the states cannot even pay minimum wage. Most of the states cannot pay their staff properly, cannot give them proper allowances. And when you take the police work and give part of it to the state governments, and these state governors don't have enough money to pay salaries. As we are speaking, some state governors are owing salaries. When you give them security salaries to pay, and you employ security, and they employ a police, and they did not pay them salary, what do you think will happen? The police, when you employ a security officer and you did not pay him money, you are indirectly telling him to go and use his uniform and generate money. So before
we move on, let's look at that argument. We've seen a lot of police people, uniformed people in Nigeria still commit different atrocities, despite the fact that perhaps they are decently paid or not. So that argument that perhaps if they're not paid, we can't really ascertain that that will be the situation, but that would not drive them, that shouldn't drive them into committing different vices in the community or in the society.
It should not.
It should. But looking at that, we've seen, even now that they're decently paid, we can still see that manifest itself. So would that
you can't say Nigerian police are decently paid. They need to be paid better. Go and check the life of an average Nigerian police officer. We are always telling government, I am a social critic, we are always telling government to pay well. When Nigeria want to make a comparison. They will tell you a price of the liter of fuel in so country is so amount, but they don't pay the salary that that country is paying. So if you don't
the
want
government
to,
has to defend itself.
yes,
in some
if
ways.
you don't want to pay the minimum wage that country is paying, don't compare Nigeria with that country in terms of fuel price or any other revenue that the government want to generate from the country. That is one point. Another point is that this state police, until and unless you make the state governors, you make it possible for the state government to generate revenue, enough revenue before you give them security job. So security job is very, very sensitive. That is why Nigerian police, they don't go on strike.
Exactly, they cannot
organize. Yeah, some states that are owing salaries, if they begin to owe the salaries of the state police, what do you think will happen? Do you want them to go on strike, or do you want them to stop working? Even if they are not on strike, they should allow, they should stop being active on their duties, and then criminalities will continue increasing in the land. Or what do you want them to do? Any state government, there is no state, I always say this, there is no state in Nigeria that cannot generate revenue for itself and another 5 states. The mineral resources are there, fertile land is there. The poverty and unemployment we have in Nigeria, it is the fault of the government.
I understand what you're saying, but also linking the conversation back to the security issue that we're saying, if we look back at other state governors and perhaps the federal allocation, there's some money that are disposed to state governors. They are perhaps evenly distributed sometimes to state government. And we look at what different states use their money for. While some people will prioritize pensioners to pay them, and some people would not perhaps use it for other infrastructural projects. We cannot determine how the state governments will react. But going to the issue of perhaps, let's say all things being equal, this is achieved in some ways. There's another salient issue that must be addressed with the issue of state police, and that is the issue of misuse of power. For instance, if we have a governor who has the right to tell the police commissioner what to do, or have the right to give them laws. I want to give a very important point. If you look at the issue of Yaya Bello right now, he was actually, his home in Lagos, in Abuja, was invaded by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. And what we saw was that his governor, the incumbent governor, now Governor Udodo, came to his rescue, drove him away, and he wasn't able to be arrested. Another example is Wike and Joy Noe, which was the ex-NDD chairman. She was, her home was also invaded by the security operative, and we saw Wike drove in there, whisk her away, and the police were not able to do anything. How do you think, given these governors the opportunity to have this power, will they not misuse it?
Yes, you know, our Nigerian democracy is still in its infantry stage. This is a fact. That is why some people in power, they will misuse power. If you give state governors police under their control, whether you have concurrent police, federal and state, there will be clashes. Like these examples you rightly cited. If there is state police, there is federal police. Federal police can go and prevent the interests of the state, and then federal police will go and protect the interests of the federal government. In some situation, there will be clash. Now that we just have the federal police, even the federal police, the federal police is there, but people took away some people that are announced to be arrested by the police. So if the state government have their own police, they can be used and ensure that nothing happened to the people they want to protect. After 65 years today, we are still having challenges of issue of police insecurity, a lot of issues.
So would you then say that given this situation, then we should continue with the federal policing system that we have, given that the governors can always do and undo things at will?
There is high possibility of misuse if we can continue with the police now. But the point is, if we want to get it right, we still need the state police. Why we need the state police is because there is need to ensure that people in their communities are properly protected. Those police that will be employed in their communities, in their respective state, they know the terrain. The issue is to ensure that there is legal framework in such a way that The state government cannot use the police after being appointed. But we have to be very, very careful. We can see, I will cite an instance to you. The state governors are saddled with the responsibility of conducting local government elections. Look at how they are misusing it, maneuvering it, doing it anyhow. Sometimes for 3 years, 4 years, that election will not be conducted. Sometimes, in short, they will appoint and remove, appoint and remove, appoint and remove. So there should be a special legal framework in such a way that after being employed as a police in the state, after being appointed as a commissioner of police in the state, the governor should not have power over you. Just like the way the president don't have power over INEC chairman, most especially at the prime time of election activities.
Now, looking at the state police that we've been talking about, for instance, the states in the southwestern part of Nigeria, they created a security architecture called Amotekun, and we've seen it, of course, they're not armed, they're just, we could call them upgraded vigilantes in their own right, but they are doing a lot of things, and people are looking at it. If this can be successful so far, then that means state police in itself has come to stay. It's an ideology that has stood the test of time and can also be implemented to its fullest.
It can be tested in so many stages. If you give them full-blown power, that is when you will really know their color, when they are armed and they can do and undo. You really know their color and how politicians can control them. Mind you, the federal police, in one way or the other, there is check and balances. The commissioner of police is there in a state. The state may be an opposition party. And then the commissioner of police, there are laws guiding his work. But in a situation whereby the police, there is another police in the state and there is another police for the federal, what if they begin to clash and all of them are armed? Now that we can see that they are not armed, they will be careful and maybe they are behaving in a way and manner that people will say, wow, they can do well. Then when you give them arms, you will see the other side of them.
Also, staying on that clashes, if we look at the different agitators that we have, agitating group that we have in Nigeria, for instance, if you look at the Yoruba Nation agitators, what happened in Oyo State recently, invasion of the state. If you look at the people in the eastern part of Nigeria, the Igbo tribe and their own history with the Nigerian Civil War and the people agitating for the Biafra independence. And looking at the northern part of Nigeria, so there are also some Kakos that also want to continue to rule or have their own parts. How do you think, just rounding up the conversation now, what do you think coming in, how do you assess that these arms that would be given to them will not fall into the hands of these wrong actors?
Let me be frank with you. The most dangerous part of this is when you have two different armed police for state and federal, the sovereignty of Nigeria is under threat.
That's a very bold statement to make.
Yes, it's under threat. Because another group will form themselves because they are armed, they know what they are doing, they can declare a country. And you are armed, I am armed, when you come is war.
Lastly, now, what is the projection like? What would you think it's possible for Nigeria? We've looked at the different sides of it, armed or not armed, security, architecture in different states. What is the projection if you could look at things in the nearest future with the security situation, even going beyond state policing? What's your final take?
Well, to be frank with you, the way I look at it, even if, you know, you have Hizbah in Kano, they are doing certain jobs, like the way you say Amotekun. Let them remain without being armed. At least they are helping the police. Let them be acting. The one that is inaugurated in Zamfara and Sokoto recently, they are not also armed. But let them be helping the police in one way or the other.
Exactly.
But giving them similar power, similar arms, before you know, a lot of things will turn upside down. And we don't want to have chaos in the country. Most especially two armed people clashing. Anytime we are having agitators who are threatening the sovereignty of Nigeria, the unity and progress of Nigeria, if they are given arms and they have arms with them legally in their hand, before you know, they can declare another country.
And that's where we draw the conversation to a close. Thank you very much,
Mohammed Abdusalam Pantami.
Pantami. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. As we've heard so far, the security issue in Nigeria is very diverse, and to solve this issue, we must look into things like state policing, perhaps even community policing, and we must address them holistically, looking at the challenges that even these measures that we're trying to put in place might cause us as a nation. My name is Adewale Alashapo, and until we come again next time, do well to follow us on all our social media platforms where you can join the conversation and let us know what you think about state policing in Nigeria. Bye for now.